What would you do if you had 4 hours to change 3 lives irreversibly? Sarah Thompson stood in her kitchen at 6:47 on a Sunday morning, staring at 3 pieces of paper hidden inside a pink birthday card covered in butterflies. The coffee maker gurgled behind her, filling the room with its rich morning smell, but she barely noticed. In 4 hours, 8-year-old Maya would open this card at her birthday party. Sarah had no idea if the girl would scream or cry or sit in stunned silence. She only knew that everything was about to change. 1 year ago, Maya was just a name in a case file. 6 months ago, she was a foster placement, temporary and uncertain. 3 months ago, she became their daughter. And today, her 2 brothers would finally learn what permanence actually means. David came downstairs, already dressed in khakis and a button-down shirt. He stopped when he saw Sarah holding the card. "Ready?" he asked quietly. "Terrified," Sarah admitted. She slid the certificates back into the envelope, her fingers clumsy. "What if we're making a mistake? What if she's not ready?" David crossed the kitchen and wrapped his arms around her from behind. "She's been ready for 18 months, he said against her hair. "She's been praying for this every single night since her mother died." Sarah closed her eyes. She thought about the girls sleeping upstairs, clutching a worn, stuffed rabbit named Clover. She thought about 2 boys who would arrive at the party in a few hours, dressed in their Sunday best, not knowing they would never leave. 3 children. 3 certificates. 3 permanent homes, wrapped in a birthday card. The story had started 8 months earlier on a Sunday morning that felt like any other. Sarah and David sat in their usual pew at church, 3rd row from the back on the left side. They always sat there. They'd been sitting there for 5 years, ever since they'd stopped filling the front rows where young families with squirming toddlers gathered. That was where Sarah had thought they'd sit someday, back when she still believed babies would come. But 3 failed IVF cycles, and 1 miscarriage had taught them otherwise. $47,000. 3 years of hope. 1 tiny heartbeat that stopped at 8 weeks. They'd given up 6 months ago, reached an uneasy peace with the empty bedrooms in their 3-bedroom house. Sarah threw herself into teaching 3rd grade. David worked longer hours at his engineering firm. They were fine, they told everyone, though the word rang hollow. Pastor Marcus stepped up to the pulpit that morning and opened his Bible to James, chapter 1, verse 27. "Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this," he read, his words steady and clear, "to look after orphans and widows in their distress." Sarah felt David shift beside her. Pastor Marcus wasn't known for soft sermons. "We have 52 children in our county's foster system right now," the pastor continued. 52 kids sleeping in beds that aren't theirs, in homes that will only keep them temporarily, wondering if anyone will ever choose them. He paused, letting that number settle over the congregation like heavy snow. "Some of you have been praying for years for a child," Pastor Marcus said. "Have you considered that maybe God's answer isn't a pregnancy test? Maybe it's a 7-year-old who needs a mom. Maybe it's a teenager who needs a dad who won't leave." Sarah's chest constricted, a band tightening around her ribs. David's hand found hers. His words dropped lower. "Maybe you're praying for a child to enter your life. Maybe a child is praying for you to enter theirs." Sarah couldn't breathe. The words landed like stones in her stomach. For 3 years she'd been praying for a baby. For 3 years she'd been asking God for something he apparently wasn't going to give. But what if there was a different answer waiting? They attended a foster care informational meeting the following Thursday night. The community center conference room smelled like burnt coffee and industrial carpet cleaner. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. 15 couples sat in metal folding chairs, all looking nervous. Mrs. Chen, the county social worker, stood at the front with a PowerPoint presentation and a stack of handouts. "Fostering is temporary," she said clearly, her tone carrying authority. "The goal is always reunification with biological family when possible. You provide a safe home during the transition. Sometimes it's weeks, Sometimes it's years. She paused. Sometimes it becomes adoption. But you can't go into fostering expecting that outcome. Sarah felt David's hand tighten on her knee. Could they do temporary? Could they love a child and then watch them leave? But they signed up for the training anyway. 10 weeks of classes, background checks, home studies, fingerprinting. They told themselves they were exploring, testing whether they could handle this. 8 weeks into the training, Mrs. Chen pulled them aside after class. "I have a girl who needs placement," she said, opening a manila folder. 7 years old. Her mother died of cancer 18 months ago. She's been in 2 foster homes already. First one wasn't a good fit. Second family had an unexpected pregnancy and couldn't keep her. Mrs. Chen glanced up. She has 2 younger brothers, 5 and 3. They're in a different placement. Sibling groups are very hard to place together. Sarah looked at the photo clipped to the file. A girl with dark skin and enormous eyes, wearing a purple shirt. She looked guarded. Careful. "Why are they separated?" Sarah heard herself ask. "Different needs. Different licensed homes. The boys are with the Pattersons, experienced foster parents who specialize in younger children. Maya needed a different kind of home." David leaned forward. "What happens to the brothers if Maya gets adopted?" Mrs. Chen's expression became carefully neutral. "They'll stay in foster care until an appropriate placement becomes available. The system does its best to keep siblings together, but it's not always possible." They met Maya the following Tuesday at the social services office. The waiting room was gray and institutional, smelling faintly of pine sol and old magazines. Maya sat in a plastic chair, feet not quite reaching the scuffed linoleum floor, clutching a stuffed rabbit with one missing eye. A wall clock ticked loudly above the reception desk. When Sarah knelt down to her level, the girl wouldn't make eye contact. "This is Clover," Maya whispered, holding up the rabbit. "My mama gave him to me when I was little." "Clover is beautiful," Sarah said softly. "I can tell you, take really good care of him." Maya's eyes flicked up for just a second. "I used to take care of my brothers too, before." That one word, before, landed in Sarah's stomach like a stone. Before her mother died. Before the system separated them. Before everything broke. They agreed to foster Maya. Mrs. Chen was explicit about the terms. "This is a foster placement. We're still searching for an adoptive family for her. Could be 6 months, could be longer. You're providing stability while we find her permanent home." Sarah nodded, telling herself she could handle temporary. They were just helping, just providing a bridge to wherever Maya would eventually land. Maya moved in on a Friday afternoon in September. She arrived with one suitcase and a garbage bag of clothes. She stood in the doorway of her new bedroom, painted in the soft yellow Sarah had chosen years ago for a nursery that never happened, and said quietly, "Thank you, ma'am." "You can call me Sarah," Sarah said. "Yes, ma'am," Maya replied. The first 2 weeks were deceptively easy. Maya was the most polite child Sarah had ever encountered. She ate everything without complaint. She said, "Please" and "thank you" and "yes, ma'am" and "no, sir." She made her bed every morning with hospital corners. She folded her clothes with precision. She never asked for anything, never complained, never caused trouble. "It's like she's afraid to take up space," Sarah told David one night after Maya had gone to bed. David frowned, closing his laptop. "She's probably been moved around so much, she's learned not to get comfortable." But Sarah noticed other things. Maya kept her belongings arranged so they could be packed quickly. She asked permission to use the bathroom. She flinched when David raised his tone at the television during a football game. This child was living like a guest in a hotel, terrified of being asked to check out. Everything changed in week 3. Sarah woke at 2:17 in the morning. She'd never forget the glowing green numbers on her alarm clock. She heard soft sounds coming from Maya's room, muffled and rhythmic. She got up, thinking maybe the girl had a nightmare. The hallway was cold, hardwood chilling her bare feet. Maya's door was cracked open just enough to see her silhouette sitting upright in bed. Tears streamed down her cheeks in the pale blue glow of her butterfly nightlight as she clutched Clover against her chest. "What's wrong, sweetie?" Sarah asked from the doorway. Maya wiped her eyes with quick efficiency. "Nothing, Miss Sarah. I'm okay. I'm sorry I woke you." "You didn't wake me, and you don't ever have to apologize for being upset." But Maya just lay back down, turned to face the wall, and went silent. It happened again the next night. And the next. Always around 2 in the morning. Always those silent tears. Always the same response when Sarah checked on her. "I'm okay." On the 5th night, Sarah didn't go into the room. She sat outside Maya's door in the dark hallway, her back against the wall, feeling the vibration of her own heartbeat through the doorframe. And finally, she heard it. Maya's whispered words, talking to Clover. "I hope Jaden's not scared tonight. I used to check on him when he had bad dreams." And Marcus? Somebody better be tucking Marcus in. He can't sleep without his song. A long pause. Then Maya again, so quiet Sarah almost missed it. "I promised Mama I'd take care of them. I promised." Sarah slid down the wall until she was sitting on the cold floor, her hand pressed against her mouth to keep from making a sound. She sat there weeping as silently as Maya did, understanding for the first time the weight this 7-year-old child was carrying. The next morning, Sarah gently asked Maya about her brothers. She expected the girl to retreat, to give polite non-answers. Instead, Maya's entire being transformed. She lit up like someone had flipped a switch inside her, her eyes bright and her smile genuine for the first time since moving in. "Jaden loves dinosaurs," Maya said, her words tumbling out faster than usual. "He knows all their names. Even the really long ones that are hard to say." "And Marcus," her smile softened. "Marcus is so funny. He makes everybody laugh. He does this thing where he scrunches up his nose and makes silly sounds." "When did you last see them?" Sarah asked carefully. Maya's smile faded. "At Mama's funeral." "That was..." She counted on her fingers, her brow furrowed. 18 months ago. Mrs. Chen said they're in a good home. She said they're safe." Safe, Sarah thought. The same word Mrs. Chen had used. Safe, but not together. Safe, but not with their sister, who had promised to take care of them. That night, after Maya was in bed, Sarah researched everything she could find. She learned that Angela, Maya's mother, had been 29 when she died. Single mother, working 2 jobs, no family support. In the final weeks, as the cancer consumed her, she'd called 6-year-old Maya to her hospital bed. "Take care of your brothers," she'd said. "Don't let them forget me." Maya had tried. For 3 days after her mother died, she'd attempted to care for 2 toddlers alone in their apartment. She'd fed them cereal. She'd changed Marcus's diapers. She'd told Jaden stories to stop his tears. A neighbor had finally called Child Protective Services. Sarah showed David the information she'd found. She played him the voice memo she'd recorded of Maya talking about her brothers, her expression lit up with love and longing. David's composure crumbled. He closed his laptop without saying anything. By November, 4 months after Maya had moved in, something fundamental had changed. Sarah no longer thought of Maya as a foster placement. She was their daughter in every way that mattered, except legally. Maya called her mom now, hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence. David taught her to ride a bike one Saturday afternoon, running behind her with his hand on the seat. When she finally rode on her own, her laughter filled the whole neighborhood. One evening, Sarah found a paper on the kitchen table, Maya's homework assignment from school. The title said "My Family" in careful block letters. Maya had drawn 3 figures. A woman labeled Mom Sarah, a man labeled Dad David, and a girl labeled Me in the middle, holding their hands. In the bottom corner, smaller and fainter, were 2 more figures labeled Jaden and Marcus with a question mark between them. Sarah stared at that drawing for an hour. That night, she told David what she'd been thinking for weeks but had been afraid to say out loud. "I don't want to foster her anymore," she said. David's expression went carefully neutral. "Sarah." "I want to adopt her," Sarah interrupted, her words shaking. "I want her to be ours. For real." She took a breath. "She's not a foster placement, David. She's our daughter. She's been our daughter since week 2. I've just been too scared to say it." David's eyes filled with tears. He pulled her into his arms. "I've been waiting for you to say it. I wanted to adopt her after the first week." They called Mrs. Chen the next day. The social worker smiled when they told her, a real smile that reached her eyes. "I was hoping you'd say that. Let's start the paperwork." But then Sarah asked the question that had been haunting her since that night in the hallway, listening to Maya weep. "What about her brothers? Where exactly are they?" Mrs. Chen pulled up the file on her computer. "Jaden and Marcus are with the Pattersons in the next county. They've been there since right after Angela died." "Are the Pattersons planning to adopt them?" Sarah asked, her heart hammering. Mrs. Chen's expression shifted to something more guarded. "The Pattersons are short-term foster care providers. They've fostered over 40 children in 15 years. They provide excellent care, but they don't typically pursue adoption. The boys will be moved to an adoptive placement when one becomes available." "How long have they been waiting?" David asked. 18 months. Sibling groups are harder to place, especially boys. Mrs. Chen softened slightly. "They're safe, Sarah. They're cared for. The Pattersons are kind people." That word again. Safe. Cared for. Not loved, not chosen, not known. Sarah couldn't let it go. That evening she called the Pattersons, her hands trembling as she dialed. The phone rang 3 times before Mrs. Patterson answered, her tone pleasant and professional. "We're hoping to arrange a sibling visit," Sarah explained. "Maya hasn't seen Jaden and Marcus in 18 months. "Of course," Mrs. Patterson said smoothly. "The boys are doing well. Jaden is very easy, follows rules beautifully. Marcus is a sweet guy. They'll do fine wherever they end up. Wherever they end up. Like they were packages waiting to be delivered." "Do they talk about Maya?" Sarah asked, her throat tight. "They did at first. We discouraged dwelling on the past. It's not helpful for their adjustment." Sarah hung up feeling nauseous. That night, she brought everything to David. She showed him Maya's drawing with her brothers in the corner. She played the recording of Maya's tone lighting up when she talked about them. She explained about the clinical foster care, the Pattersons, kind but institutional approach, the boys being cared for but not treasured. "I can't separate them," Sarah said, her words breaking. "I can't adopt Maya and leave her brothers in a system that treats them like temporary inventory." David stood and paced the kitchen. "Sarah, we planned for 1 child. 1. Our budget, our space, our entire lives are built for 1 child. I know. We don't even know these boys. We've never met them. I know that. And fostering to adopt 3 children?" David ran his hands through his hair. "The home study would be grueling. The costs. We'd need a bigger car. We'd have to renovate the 3rd bedroom. Childcare for 3. I understand all of that." Sarah's words cracked. "But David, she made a promise to her dying mother. She's 7 years old and she's carrying a promise she can't keep because we won't help her." David sat down heavily at the kitchen table. "This isn't fair," he said quietly. "No, it's not fair. None of it is fair." They sat in silence. The kitchen clock ticked. Finally, David said, "If we adopt her and leave the boys, she'll resent us someday. She'll wonder why we didn't try." "And if we try for all 3 and fail?" Sarah voiced her worst fear. "If we can't handle it, if we disrupt the adoption, then we'll have hurt 3 kids instead of helping 1. David looked at her, his expression lined with exhaustion and fear and determination. "Then we better not fail." Sarah began praying differently after that. Not polite Sunday school prayers. Raw, Desperate prayers at 3 in the morning when sleep wouldn't come. She prayed in the shower, in the car, kneeling on the kitchen floor after everyone else was asleep. Why would you bring her to us if we can't make her whole? Why show us her pain if we can't heal it? You could have given her to a family with more money, more space, more capacity. Why us? Why now? This is impossible. No answers came. Just Maya's weeping at 2 a.m. and Sarah sitting outside her door, listening to her whisper to Clover about brothers being cared for but not loved. David, being David, made spreadsheets. Cost of childcare for 3 children, cars that fit 3 car seats, grocery budget multiplied by 2.5, birthday parties, clothes, school supplies, sports equipment, college funds, if they even dared to dream that big. The numbers didn't work. They just didn't. We'd have to pull money from retirement, he told her one night, his laptop screen glowing in the dark bedroom. We'd have to trade in both cars for one used minivan. No vacations for years, no house renovations, we'd be paycheck to paycheck. Sarah stared at the numbers. He was right. It wasn't sustainable. But then she thought about Angela, 29 years old, working 2 jobs, raising 3 kids alone, dying of cancer. She didn't have a spreadsheet. She just had love and determination and faith that somehow it would work. What if we're not supposed to have it figured out? Sarah said quietly. What if faith means stepping into something impossible and trusting God to make it work? David closed the laptop. He didn't answer, but he didn't say no either. They arranged a sibling visit through Mrs. Chen. It happened on a Saturday in December at a park. Cold gray sky, leftover leaves scattered on the playground, Sarah's breath making wisps in the air. Maya vibrated with anticipation beside her, gripping David's hand so hard her knuckles were white. The Pattersons' maroon van pulled up exactly at 2 p.m. Mrs. Patterson opened the sliding door and 2 boys climbed out. They wore matching outfits, khaki pants, navy blue sweaters, hair neatly combed. They looked like they were going to church, not a playground. They stood by the van uncertainly, not quite sure what to do. Jaden, Marcus, Mrs. Patterson called out. Come meet your sister. For a moment the boys just stood there. Then Maya broke free and ran, her purple jacket flying behind her. Jaden, Marcus! Recognition flooded Jaden's expression. Maya, he screamed, and he ran. 3-year-old Marcus toddled after, not really understanding but knowing his sister had returned. They crashed together in the middle of the playground. Maya dropped to her knees and wrapped both boys in her arms. They piled on top of her, all 3 laughing and sobbing and talking at once. Sarah watched Jaden bury his head in Maya's shoulder. She watched Marcus pat his sister's hair and say in his toddler speech, Maya came back. David's arm went around Sarah's waist. His words were rough when he spoke. We can't send them back. I know. They watched the 3 children for the next hour. Maya showed her brothers the swings, pushing Marcus gently, carefully, like he was made of glass. Jaden explained in breathless detail about a dinosaur book Mrs. Patterson had gotten him, his words tumbling over each other. Maya listened like he was telling her the secrets of the universe. She never let go of them, not once. When Mrs. Patterson called time, Marcus didn't understand. He reached for Maya, his hands grasping. Come with? He asked. Maya's composure crumpled. Not today, buddy, but soon. I promise. Soon. Sarah watched Mrs. Patterson efficiently buckle the boys into their car seats. Professional, practiced, detached. Jaden pressed against the window, watching Maya until the van turned the corner. Marcus waved until he couldn't see her anymore. Maya stood in the parking lot and sobbed. Not quiet weeping this time. Loud, broken sobs that came from somewhere deep inside. David knelt beside her and pulled her close. We're going to fix this, he said into her hair. I don't know how yet, but we're going to fix this. The next Sunday, Pastor Marcus preached on the feeding of the 5,000. Sarah and David sat in their usual pew, Maya between them, holding both their hands. The disciples saw what they didn't have, the pastor said. Jesus saw what they did have. 5 loaves. 2 fish. Not enough. By any logical calculation, not nearly enough. David's hand tightened on the pew in front of him. The miracle wasn't that Jesus created food from nothing. The miracle was that he took what they offered, inadequate, laughably insufficient, and blessed it, multiplied it, made it enough. Pastor Marcus paused. God doesn't call us to do what's reasonable. He calls us to do what's faithful, to offer what we have. And then, He provides what's needed. Tears slid down Sarah's cheeks. David was weeping too. Maya looked up at them, confused by their reaction but somehow understanding the weight of the moment. After service, they met with Pastor Marcus in his office. They explained everything. Maya, the brothers, the impossible math, the paralyzing fear. The pastor listened without interrupting. Then he asked one question. If money and logistics weren't factors, what would you do? We'd bring her brothers home, Sarah said immediately. We'd adopt all 3. David nodded. We'd do it in a heartbeat. Then let's start there, Pastor Marcus said. Let's start with obedience, and trust God for the rest. They called Mrs. Chen Monday morning. Sarah's palms were damp as she dialed. We want to adopt all 3, she said when the social worker answered. Maya, Jaden, and Marcus. I know it's complicated. I know it's a lot. But we want them. We want to be their family. The silence on the other end lasted so long, Sarah thought the call had dropped. Then Mrs. Chen spoke carefully. Let me be completely honest. This will be hard. Sibling adoptions are complex. The boys have been in their placement for 18 months. There's an argument for stability. And you're relatively new foster parents. The process will be invasive and exhausting. We're sure, David said, leaning close to the phone. Another pause. Then, okay, let's do this. Let's bring these kids home. The church mobilized within 48 hours. Someone donated bunk beds. A contractor offered to renovate the 3rd bedroom for free. 2 couples committed to childcare 2 afternoons a week. An envelope appeared in their mailbox with $5,000 cash and a note that said simply, for the boys. From a friend. Sarah and David never found out who sent it. The home study process was brutal. Financial records, medical history, including all their infertility documentation, employment verification, personal references, background checks at every level, home safety inspections, individual interviews that felt more like interrogations, parenting classes where they sat with couples 10 years younger. And through it all, the fear. What if we're approved for Maya but not the boys? What if they split them up anyway? The boys started visiting on weekends. It was chaos. Marcus had tantrums. Jaden wet the bed the first night and was mortified. Maya tried to mother them both and dissolved into tears when she couldn't make them behave perfectly. One Saturday night, after the boys had gone back to the Pattersons, Sarah lay awake at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling. David found her in the bathroom with tears streaming down. I don't know if we can do this, she whispered. What if we adopt them and fail them? What if we're not enough? He pulled her close. We're not enough. That's the whole point. We're not enough. But God is. The home study took 3 months. 3 months of weekend visits. Of learning Jaden's dinosaurs and Marcus's silly expressions. Of Maya slowly believing her brothers might actually stay. Then in March, Mrs. Chen called. You're approved. For all 3. Sarah dropped the phone. The plan was to transition the boys over spring break. A week together as a family before the adoption was finalized. Then, if everyone agreed it was working, the boys would stay. No more Pattersons. No more revolving door. But Sarah had an idea. Maya's 8th birthday was in late April, 3 weeks after spring break. What if they didn't tell Maya the adoption was final until then? Mrs. Chen was hesitant. That's a long time to keep it secret. But David understood. She's been waiting 18 months. She's lived in temporary, in maybe, in someday. I want to give her permanence wrapped in a birthday card. The boys moved in during spring break. They arrived with their belongings in trash bags, just like Maya had. Mrs. Patterson was efficient at drop-off, her goodbye brief and professional. The first week was hard. Jaden followed Sarah everywhere, afraid she would disappear. Marcus had nightmares. Maya was ecstatic, but also bossy, trying to control everything to keep her brother safe. But there were good moments. David teaching Jaden to shoot baskets, Marcus falling asleep on Sarah's lap during a movie, Maya reading bedtime stories to both boys. Slowly, the boys began to relax, to believe, to belong. For 3 weeks, Sarah and David kept the secret. The finalization hearing happened on April 24th. The judge signed the papers. Jaden Michael Thompson. Marcus Daniel Thompson. Official. Legal. Permanent. The signed certificates went into a manila envelope, then into a pink birthday card, covered in butterflies. Now it was 6:47 on Sunday morning, the day of Maya's 8th birthday party. Sarah stood in the kitchen holding that card while David made coffee, and Maya slept upstairs, dreaming of birthday cake and her brothers who didn't know yet that they were staying. By 11 o'clock, the backyard was full of people. Church families, Sarah's teacher friends, neighbors who had watched this family come together. Balloons bobbed in the breeze. A bounce house took up half the lawn. The smell of chocolate frosting drifted from the dessert table. Maya wore a purple dress and couldn't stop smiling. After chocolate cake with purple frosting, Maya opened presents. She was careful with each one, reading the cards, folding the wrapping paper. Jaden and Marcus helped, Marcus mostly just playing with ribbons, while Jaden carefully stacked the discarded paper. Finally, Sarah brought out the pink envelope. "This one's from me and Dad." Maya took it carefully, tracing the butterflies. "It's so pretty." "Open it," David said softly. Maya pulled out the first paper. Her expression went confused. "What is this?" "Read it out loud, sweetheart." "Certificate of adoption." Maya read slowly. "Maya Angela Thompson is hereby adopted by Sarah Elizabeth Thompson and David Michael Thompson." She looked up, her eyes huge. "Thompson? That's your last name." "It's your last name now, too." Maya's hands began trembling. "This means I'm yours? For real?" "For real," Sarah confirmed. "You're our daughter, legally. Officially. Permanently." Maya clutched the paper to her chest. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "Baby, there's more in the envelope," David said gently. Maya's hands shook as she pulled out the second paper. She read the name and her head snapped up. "Jaden Christopher Thompson." Her words barely worked. "Jaden? My Jaden." "Your Jaden." Maya yanked out the third paper. Marcus Daniel Thompson. She held all 3 certificates, tears streaming. "My brothers. You adopted my brothers." The backyard had gone silent. Every person there was watching. "They're coming home?" Maya whispered. "For real?" Sarah knelt in front of her. "They're already home, baby. They're not leaving. Ever." David knelt beside Jaden and Marcus. "Boys, do you know what these papers mean?" Jaden shook his head. Marcus was examining a piece of ribbon. "It means you're our sons. Not for a visit. Not for a little while. For the rest of your life, we're your dad and mom. You're part of our family. Nobody's gonna move you again. You're home." Jaden stared at him. Then in a whisper so soft, Sarah barely heard it. "Nobody ever said that before." David pulled him close. "I'm saying it now. You're my son." Maya dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around both boys. "We're staying together. All of us. We're a family. A real family." Marcus finally understood the magnitude of the moment. "Together?" he asked, his hands on Maya's cheeks. "Together." Sarah and David joined them, wrapping all 3 children in their arms. The party watched as 5 people who had been strangers less than a year ago became a family in a suburban backyard on a Sunday afternoon. Maya sobbed. Real, loud, cathartic sobs. "I kept my promise," she said, looking up at the sky. "Mama, I kept my promise. I'm taking care of them." Sarah smoothed her hair. "You don't have to take care of them anymore, sweetie. That's my job now." Maya looked at her. "Can I be both? Their sister and their person?" "Yeah, baby. You can be both." 2 years later, Sarah stands in Maya's bedroom doorway, watching her 10-year-old daughter sleep. The adoption certificates hang on the wall in protective plastic sleeves. The house is chaos now. Legos everywhere, crayon marks on walls, a noise level that makes visitors wince. Sarah and David are exhausted. They're still tight on money. The minivan broke down last month. They haven't had a real vacation in 2 years. But Maya laughs now. Really fully laughs. Jaden reads at a 3rd grade level in 1st grade and wants to be a paleontologist. Marcus makes friends easily. Brings home art projects with 4 stick figures labeled "My Family." One night, tucking Maya in, Sarah asks if she remembers her 8th birthday. "Every single second. That's the day my promise to Mama came true. You know you don't have to take care of them anymore, right?" Maya smiles. "I know. But can I still be their person, the one who remembers?" Always. Sometimes God answers prayers we didn't know how to pray. Sarah and David asked for 1 child. God gave them 3. They offered what they had. A house, uncertain finances, a willingness to try, and God blessed it, multiplied it, made it enough. Not because they were extraordinary people, but because they said yes to something bigger than their fear. 3 children who had been numbers in a system became names on adoption certificates, and a family was born in a backyard on a Sunday afternoon in April.